Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NBA DFS Core Pick video for today, Wednesday, November 15th. If you are joining me for the very first time, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately ended up turning out. That's going to be for the updated core for yesterday. I think there was like one change in total between the two sites, between what I had originally in the video and what I had later on in the day. And then we'll get moved over to the injuries in play for tonight's slate. There are 7 teams on back-to-backs today, so I will not be highlighting those teams quite as much, but we'll look at the other 9 teams and kind of see how they look at least early on. And then all the injury updates throughout the day will be listed down in the comments. And we'll talk about my core picks. So it's going to be one player at each position: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. But without further ado, we'll get moved over to the recap for yesterday's picks. I'm going to go through this one pretty quickly. It wasn't the greatest day overall, especially on the DraftKings side. We had Tyrese Maxey at $8,900, looking for 44.45 out of him, got to 40.5. So he was a mess, but ultimately not anybody that really killed our lineups. Obviously, you could have gotten a lot worse. It was like Luka Doncic, who had 19 DraftKings points last night, which is just kind of ridiculous for somebody of his caliber. But at the same time, if you had like DeJounte Murray here instead of Tyrese Maxey, your lineup probably did pretty well. And then at shooting guard, we went with Devin Vassell at $6,300, looking for 32 points out of him. There was no Trey Jones. There was no Keldon Johnson last night. And then Jeremy Sohan ultimately ended up playing, but we got to 27.75 points out of him. So he ultimately was a miss. Only played 25 minutes in this game. It was a blowout. If he plays upwards of 30 minutes, like we kind of expected, would have cleared his price tag pretty easily. But unfortunately, they got ran out of the gym last night. Then we move over to small forward with Bogdan Bogdanovic at $4,900. Looking for 25 points. I'm got 27.25, so he was the hit. Then a power forward, we move with Aaron Gordon, who's been really, really solid since Jamal Murray's been out. At $6,800, we were looking for 34 fantasy points on. We got to 32.75. So to give him a push, we were about 1 point off of what we were looking for out of him yesterday. Just not the greatest day for him. You can't really call it a bad day because he still scored 20 real-life points, had 5 rebounds and 5 assists. So it's still a pretty solid day, just for his price tag ultimately did not pay off. And then last but not least, at the center position, we went with Isaiah Stewart at $5,700. So there was no Jalen Duren last night. We knew that news very early in the day. So Isaiah Stewart looked really good. He's played really good without Duren so far this year, but unfortunately had 19 minutes last night and got to 13.75 points, so he was a miss. Like I said, DraftKings side was pretty ugly yesterday. But we'll get moved over to FanDuel, where we had point guard Chris Paul at $6,100. Got to 35 points, so he was a hit. And then at shooting guard, we had DeJounte Murray at $8,600, looking for 43 out of him. Got to 60, so he was a good hit there. And then at small forward, we went over to Andrew Wiggins as the day moved along at $4,400. Only looking for 22 points on him. He got 25.4 points. He was a hit. And let me just say this with Andrew Wiggins. He was 4 for 15 shooting for the day. So if he just shot even remotely average, he would have been a very, very good value at his price tag. So he played terrible and still ultimately was a hit yesterday. Then at power forward, we stuck with Robert Covington at $3,900, looking for 20 points on him, got to 7.7. So that unfortunately was a mess. He only played 16 minutes in this game. They did play a lot of Patrick Beverley instead of him off the bench, who played like 28 minutes. And then last but not least, we had Isaiah Stewart once again at $5,700, looking for 28 out of him. Got to 14.2, used a mess. And like I said, on the DraftKings side, only ultimately ended up playing 19 minutes. So not the greatest day for us overall yesterday. DraftKings was pretty rough. Did save it with a turbo lineup that I did have. FanDuel, a little bit hit or miss there. If you had some other solid plays, you still had a pretty decent chance to cash in. It was just a little bit more difficult than we kind of expected initially, though. But with that being said, we'll get moved over into the injuries and play for today's games. Like I mentioned earlier, it is an 8-game main slate. We have 7 teams that are on back-to-backs, and then we have 9 teams that obviously did not play yesterday. So we're going to be looking at what we can see so far. Obviously, some of these back-to-back teams, they're going to pop up a little bit more as the day moves along. But we're going to start off with the Dallas Mavericks. They are on the back-to-back. We do know Maxi Kleber's out because he's out for multiple weeks at this point in time. So no real changes expected there. If Luka or Kyrie rest today, it's something that is a possibility. But, they got blown out of the gym last night, so there's a pretty good chance that they do ultimately end up playing tonight. Then for the Washington Wizards side, DeLon Wright is out once again. He's going to be out for quite some time. Moving over to the New York Knicks, they're not on a back-to-back. They have RJ Barrett listed as questionable due to illness. He did miss their most recent game, so we'll see if he's back tonight or not. Obviously, if he doesn't play, Josh Hart's going to look better. Dante DiVincenzo, Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickley, they're all going to get more minutes in this game overall. Then we have the Atlanta Hawks. They're on the back-to-back. Trae Young ultimately did end up missing yesterday. He was out for personal reasons. We'll see whether or not he's back for tonight's game. Then we move over to the Boston Celtics. We have Quetta and Porzingis both listed as questionable. Jaylen Brown is a new one since I did do my injuries this morning, so we're just going to take a look, see what's up with Jaylen Brown for tonight's game. So Jaylen Brown is dealing with an illness, so he's listed as questionable. We'll see whether or not he does ultimately end up playing for tonight's game. Could ultimately sway this game a good amount there if he plays or not. Same thing with Porzingis. There could be some value opening up for the Celtics team overall. And then we move over to 76ers side. They're on the back-to-back, so we don't know a lot of the injury news. We knew Kelly Oubre is going to be out once again. Nick Batum missed yesterday due to personal reasons, and Joel Embiid had a Q tag going into yesterday's game. He played in that game. It was part of, the group play for the in-season tournament. Would not be shocked if he does ultimately end up sitting out for tonight's game, though. Then we move down to the Milwaukee Bucks, who are without Jay Crowder, Chris Livingston once again, and then Giannis is listed as probable due to a calf injury. On the Toronto Raptors side, they have Christian Koloko out once again, and then Gary Trent and OG Anunoby, both listed as doubtful for tonight's game. So the last game we did see Otto Porter Jr. join that starting lineup, only played 14 minutes though. Kind of warned a lot of people about that this dude cannot play big minutes at this point in time. I was on the Grady Dick train for that game. Obviously, I'm a pretty big Kansas fan as it is, but he ultimately didn't end up paying off either. So we'll see if there's any value that does open up from this Raptors team overall. We'll see if Otto Porter Jr. still gets that start once again tonight. Then we move over to Orlando Magic, who are on the back-to-back. They do have Wendell Carter and Markelle Fultz listed out at this point in time. We'll see if that changes throughout the day. And then for the Chicago Bulls, DeMar DeRozan is going to be out tonight for personal reasons. Day'Lon Terry is going to miss once again. Alex Caruso questionable due to a toe injury. And then Patrick Williams listed as probable due to his finger injury he's been playing recently as of late. So whoever the fifth starter is for this Bulls team in place of DeMar DeRozan tonight is going to look pretty interesting. But I do have quite a bit of interest in Kobe White, Zach LaVine, and Nikolai Vucevic tonight, as well as they all should see an uptick in shot volume and usage overall. Then we move down to the Minnesota Timberwolves coming off the back-to-back. Obviously, a crazy game last night where they were playing the Golden State Warriors, a very short-handed Warriors team, especially after the first 2 minutes of the game where Jaden McDaniels and Klay Thompson got into it, and then Klay Thompson, Jaden McDaniels, and Draymond Green all got ejected from that game. Obviously, there was no Steph Curry last night as well. And the Timberwolves only won that game by 3 points. So we'll see what that looks like for today's game. Should be pretty interesting here. We'll see if they rest anybody on the back-to-back. I know in a group chat earlier today, somebody was asking if they rest anybody. I'm like, if they do, it's probably just Conley, because I know he was resting a lot on back-to-backs with the Jazz. I don't remember if he did that once he came over with the Timberwolves, though. Then for the Phoenix Suns, they are going to be without Damon Lee once again. Eric Gordon listed as probable, so pretty much as healthy as they're going to get at this point in time. Moving over to the Sacramento Kings, they're without Alex Len and Trey Lyles, so it looks like JaVale McGee should be in the backup center role tonight, so nothing too crazy here for the Kings side. Obviously, they did get De'Aaron Fox back in their most recent game. Lakers are on the back-to-back, so we'll see what that looks like. We'll see if maybe LeBron James or Anthony Davis sits out tonight's game. We'll just have to see. And then last but not least, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Portland Trailblazers. For the Cavaliers, Darius Garland's out tonight, so this is going to open up some value. Whether you want to play Donovan Mitchell, Karis LeVert, Max Strus, they're all going to look like excellent plays overall tonight. And then they do have Ty Jerome, Isaac Okoro, and Ricky Rubio all out once again. For the Portland Trailblazers side, looks like Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simon should miss once again. They are on the back-to-back, though. And now Malcolm Brogdon is listed as doubtful at this point in time. So it should be a pretty similar lineup to what we saw in last night's game. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the injuries in play. Once again, there are 7 teams on the back-to-back, so I will be listing a lot of injuries down in the comments throughout the day. So definitely make sure you're checking up down there as we do get closer to the lock. But with that being said, we'll get moving over to DraftKings and talk about my core picks for tonight's slate. So we're going to start off at the point guard position with Kobe White of the Chicago Bulls, $5,500. He's been in my core picks a couple of times this season so far. Going against the Orlando Magic, pretty good spot for point guards just in general because they've done pretty well against the Orlando Magic, the point guards that is at that position. Kobe White averaging, about 26 fantasy points per game. We're looking for 27, 28 out of him tonight. Currently, I'm projected for 28. If he plays 30 minutes or more, it's going to look even better. And then obviously there's extra shot volume and extra usage to go around with no DeMar DeRozan out there on the court tonight. Then we're going to go down to his teammate at shooting guard, Zach LaVine, at $7,700. Looking for 38, 39 fantasy points out of him. He's averaging about 35 so far on the season. Currently, I'm projected for about 41 fantasy points tonight without DeMar DeRozan on the court. Definitely going to help see an uptick for Zach LaVine overall tonight. So it looks like a pretty solid play there. Definitely like getting some exposure to these bold players, whether it's one of the three of Kobe White, Zach LaVine, or Nikolai Vucevic, or one of the cheaper value options that the Bulls do present for tonight's slate as well. Then at small forward, we're going to get down to Max Strus. He's $5,600, which kind of seems like a misprice already. You're only looking for 28 fantasy points on him. He's averaging almost 31 on the season. Pretty good matchup tonight against the Portland Trailblazers. And then there is no Darius Garland tonight. Currently, I'm projected for 32 fantasy points, but definitely has a strong upside for more as well. Then we move down to power forward with the man Julius Randle going against the Atlanta Hawks tonight. So pretty much rule number one, if Julius Randle's playing against the Hawks, you just play him because his numbers against the Hawks, especially when you look at it since the time he left the Lakers, he's averaging like 26 fantasy points, over 10 rebounds, over 4 assists per game in those games that he's played against them. So he's just had some really strong performances against the Atlanta Hawks, and sometimes it even seems better when he does play in Atlanta. So we're looking for 41 fantasy points out, about what he's averaging so far in the season. Currently, I'm projected for 43. Definitely does have a strong upside for more as well. Obviously, you can look at other guys at this power forward spot tonight. There's Giannis out there, there's Kevin Durant, and there's Pascal Siakam, but for me, it's going to be Julius Randle tonight. Him and Pascal Siakam are going to be my top two at the power forward spot for today overall. And then last but not least, we're going to get down to center position with Daniel Gafford taking an upside swing here at $5,400. Just hoping he does ultimately end up playing the minutes. Pretty good matchup against the Dallas Mavericks. They've been pretty rough for centers at times this year, so definitely do like him quite a bit tonight. He does have the really strong upside. You know, if you get 28, 30 minutes out of him, he's going to look really good because in those games, he's gone over 30 fantasy points. Currently, I'm projected for 28. We're looking for 27 at $5,400. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $17,600 remaining, just under $5,900 per player. So right now we don't have too many cheap value options, but if we get some of them coming out throughout the day, plug 2 of those in, plug a star player, and you'll be good to go with this lineup overall. Although there are a lot of guys in the high 7,000s, low 8,000s that I really do like for tonight's slate overall. And then obviously you can throw guys like Donovan Mitchell, Luka Doncic, Giannis up there at the top 2 as well in that group, Kevin Durant. There's a lot of good options, a lot of good players out there playing in tonight's slate overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So once again, we're going back to Kobe White at the point guard position at $5,400. So he's $100 cheaper than he is over on DraftKings. Looking for 27 fantasy points on him. He's averaging just over 25 on the FanDuel side. So turnovers hurt him a little bit, and then you don't get the 3-point bonus on FanDuel. So a little bit lower there, but I still have him projected for, right around 28 points if he plays 30 minutes tonight, especially if Alex Caruso's out. Kobe White's going to be a major part for this Bulls team overall. And like I said before, Orlando Magic haven't been too great against that guard position so far this season. Then we're going to go down to shooting guard with Caris LeVert at $6,100. Obviously, I do love Donovan Mitchell quite a bit, but I want to talk about some of these cheaper guys, especially when I'm building out these core picks to give you guys a little bit more salary to use. But Caris LeVert, $6,100, looking for 30, 31 fantasy points at him. He's averaging 33 so far on the season. No Darius Garland tonight, so either in that starting lineup or playing bigger minutes. Doesn't really matter which. Been scoring the ball really well the last 3 games as well. Takes on a little bit more of a facilitator role, a little bit more of a usage role with no Darius Garland out there. And right now I currently have him projected for about 34 fantasy points. Definitely does have a little bit of upside for more as well. And then we go down to his teammate Max Strus once again, $5,800. You're looking for 29 fantasy points on him. He's averaging 29.5 so far in the season, so just a great price tag overall. And then you factor in no Darius Garland tonight, so Strus is going to do just a little bit more. Currently have him projected for 31 fantasy points tonight. And then both those guys, they are going against the Portland Trailblazers, so it should be a pretty good pace-up spot and a pretty good matchup overall. Then we move down to power forward with Julius the Man Randle once again going against the Atlanta Hawks, who he does play well against historically. $8,400 on the FanDuel side, looking for 42 out of him. Currently I'm projected for 43. Only averaging about 38 fantasy points per game on the season on the FanDuel side. Shooting hasn't been there early on in the season, but it's starting to come around a little bit as of late, so definitely do like him in this matchup once again. And then last but not least, we're going to the center position with Nikolai Vucevic at $8,200, looking for 41 fantasy points on him, averaging just over 38 fantasy points per game on the season. Been scoring the ball pretty well lately. Obviously, a pretty good rebounder just in general. There is no DeMar DeRozan tonight, so going to get a couple extra shots, going to get an uptick in usage as well. And he's going against his former team in the Orlando Magic, who are rolling out Goga Bitadze and Mo Wagner versus him. So looks like a really favorable matchup for him overall. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $26,100 remaining, $6,500 per player. Doesn't sound like a lot of money. Kind of sounds like a balance build type of day. And like I said, I like a lot of those guys, kind of that Zach LaVine, that Julius Randle, that Pascal Siakam, the Nikolai Vucevic range today overall. But there are some really good players at the top at the very same time. So get creative with your lineups. 8-game main slate, all these teams on the back-to-back. Hopefully some value does open up throughout the day as well. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for today, November 15th. As always, if you have any questions related to NBA DFS, be sure to leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. I would ask that you do note whether those questions are more FanDuel or DraftKings specific, just so I can best help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then, as always, I'll be listing all the injury news throughout the day, the starting lineups as they are announced throughout the night. So definitely be sure you're checking out down in the comments for that. And then about 15 to 20 minutes prior to lock, I'll leave a pinned comment with my updated core. If there's no changes, I'll just leave a comment that says there's no changes at this point in time. But I do expect there to be a couple changes here and there just due to the nature of 7 teams being on a back-to-back and potential value opening up throughout the day. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have NBA DFS Core Pick videos Monday through Friday. We got a NFL DFS player pool video once a week, and then I do post up my NFL DFS cheat sheets on the sports affiliation website for both FanDuel and DraftKings. So a lot of good DFS content coming out throughout the week. And then with that being said, if you guys are interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and the promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Parlay Play, and Prize Picks. If you are a new user, first-time depositor, you'll get a pretty good first match deposit on all 3 of those sites. Helps you out a little bit as you do start your sports betting, your prop betting journey. Helps me out a little bit on the side as well. If you have any questions regarding that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NBA DFS tonight.